I'll say something about the Palestinians because
Yeah, please.
a lot of people talk about the connection between the Palestinians and these early people. And the bottom line is, look, if you do DNA analysis, and then every time you mention DNA analysis, people jump at you and say you're doing Nazi science or whatever. But DNA analysis is fascinating and gives
Yeah,
you a lot of insights. Everyone who lives in Israel has shares DNA with these ancient peoples to
yeah.
some extent, and that goes before the Canaanites. That goes back to the Natufians, the first agricultural people in history, pioneers from the land of Israel. Palestinians and Israelis share Natufian DNA, and so do a lot of other people in the region, like Armenians and Kurds, and most people stayed in the same area their whole lives.
Yeah.
Then maybe they'd move 50 miles. There's a drought, whatever. But generally, and then their children would move, maybe 50 miles back towards the land of Israel or whatever. And all the people who live here, sorry, I'm in Hollywood, so not here. That's a different story. All the people who live live in Israel now uh, share some of that DNA. Who has more, who has less, depends on the group, depends on the period. But part of the Palestinian DNA does come from those ancient people. However, their culture is almost irrelevant to it. I mean, the culture that you have in the land of Israel, starting with the Muslim conquest, has very little connection to that because there were so many waves. You
Hmm.
had the Hellenic wave,
Hmm.
then you have the Roman wave, which is related, but it's different. The Byzantines,
Hmm.
um, and then you have the Muslims come in. Then during the Muslim era, you have a lot of people leave, then a lot of people come from other parts of the Arab world. So you really have a mixture of Arab culture, to state the obvious, Arab DNA from other parts of the Middle East, and cultural influences that come from completely different parts of the world in completely different periods. A lot of the early religious influences on Islam in the land of Israel are Hellenic,
Mm.
like the Manichaean philosophies or things of that sort. So the links culturally to the Canaanites for Palestinians are non-existent, I would
Huh.
say. But DNA wise, yes. Meanwhile, for Jews, there's also a um, cultural link going back to the Canaanites.
Gotcha. But the Jews' DNA, like how? So correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the modern Jewish Israelis largely came from Europe, as the Zionists. No, that's not
No, no,
okay.
that there's two problems with that.
Sure.
Um, First of all, I'll start with the Ashkenazi Jews. Those are the
Hmm.
European Jews.
Yep.
So Ashkenazi Jews have strong DNA links to the Middle East still, right? If you did a DNA test on me, I'm an
Yeah.
Ashkenazi Jew. My folks are from Lithuania and Poland
Hmm.
and Ukraine. So if you did a DNA analysis on me and you did DNA analysis on an Ethiopian Jew, obviously we look very different. We both have more in common, usually not 100% of the time, with each other than I do with a Ukrainian and they would with an Ethiopian.
Oh, no kidding.
That's not Jewish. Yeah, because we had very insulated communities. So we intermarried and bred to some extent, but not all that much. So that's one thing. But the other thing is that in Israel, the majority is no longer Ashkenazi Jewish. Um, the most Ashkenazi Jews, most were killed in the Holocaust. So
Yeah.
there's actually, less of us now than there were then. And when Israel was established, most Jews there were European of origin, and the leaders were European of origin. But within 10 years, the Jews from Arab countries outnumbered the Ashkenazi Jews. And by 1967, it was a significant majority that were from Arab speaking countries or other countries that are not Ashkenazi, like Iran, India, Turkey, and the biggest communities from Morocco and from Iraq. And there's even
Really?
documents, yeah, And there's
Huh.
even documents in 67 before the war where Israeli generals, Ashkenazi generals, were saying, can we fight a war when most of our soldiers are not Ashkenazi? They're from all these primitive countries. Are we going to be able to win wars anymore? Well, they won. They won the war really, really nicely.
Yep.
What wasn't a big problem. Then in that changed a little bit in 91 when the um, immigrants from Russia or former Soviet Union came to Israel. That was 1 million Ashkenazis showing up in Israel out of the blue. That kind of evened things up. But now the largest group in Israel is mixed. There's more people who are Mizrahi and Ashkenazi in Israel than any other group. Like I think of my group of friends, I'm 100% Ashkenazi, but that's mostly because my family's from the US.
Huh.
But when I think of my friends, most of them are mixed.
So oh,
50-50, 75-25. That's the norm now. So it's a very
so
Middle
the
Eastern country.
so they started out as Ashkenazi Jews as a Zionist movement, but over
That's
the
right.
years it became the Jewish mix became largely Arab and European.
Yeah. Now,
Okay.
a lot of them would be offended if you called them Arab,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
call them
Again, from
Mizrahi Jews.
is how do you say that?
Mizrahi.
Mizrahi. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Mizrahi. Okay. I'll make sure to get that one right.
Yeah. Just don't call them Arab and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's touchy.
To an extent, they were the ones who were from Arab countries. Not all of them, like Persian Jews, are not Arab Jews. To the extent they were, they spoke Arabic. I just
Right.
was watching Faude the other day, and in there, this Mizrahi Jew, the father of the hero, Doron, says,
Mhm.
"I'm an Arab Jew. I grew up in Baghdad," and you do hear that sometimes,
Yeah.
but a lot of them really don't like that because, unfortunately, sometimes Arab is almost a slur in
Yeah.
Hebrew. Very
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's reminds me of the story of like the last two Jews in Afghanistan. Ace was uh where it's like they were arguing, they got sent
They
to
hadn't
prison
spoken in
together.
years. They were feuding.
They were feuding. Only two Jews, and they were just in a fight constantly.
You know the joke about the Jew on the um, desert island?
Tell me about it.
Okay, I hope I can do it justice. It's the paradigmatic Jewish joke. So a Jew is shipwrecked, and he's the only guy who survives. And he sets up shop in the island. This guy's really resourceful. He builds all this stuff, houses, grain storage, and two synagogues. And he's discovered by another group of Jews, and they look at what he's built and they're amazed. And they say, "But listen, why do you have two synagogues? You're only one person." So he says, "This is the synagogue I pray in every Sabbath. And this, I will never set foot there in my life."